One with Rich Pierce. A deeper dive into the issues that affect you, the residents of the Ohio Valley. Sponsored by Trinity Health System.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rich Pierce. Thank you for joining me for this edition of One on One. Today, I'm joined by Franciscan University President, Father Dave Pivonka. Father Dave, thank you so much for being here today.
Really my pleasure. Thanks, Rich, for letting me be here. It's really
now, let's just first of all get into it. This is your alma mater. So you're coming home in many ways.
Actually, the fact that you say that's really important. I mean, I first came here in 1986. So Steubenville, in one way or another, has been my home. I came here as a student, was actually ordained on campus in 1996, moved here again, and then just about 6 months ago came back to Steubenville. So it's been a part of my life, this Ohio Valley, for 33 years. So it's great to be home.
What was your reaction when you found out that this was a possibility, you being the president of Franciscan University?
Do you know, actually, there's a funny story to that, because I was visiting Steubenville in February, and I was actually going by the Bob Evans, where the Bob Evans is in town, and I was just looking around, and I had not lived here for a while, and I was looking around, and I said, this is really charming. And as soon as I said this is charming, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I think I might be coming back to Steubenville sometime. And I got a call 3 months later and asked to be the president. So it's great to be back. So much of my life history has been here, college friends and relationships, being a part of the university for so many years. Yeah, it is. You put it perfectly. It's just like coming home.
1986 wasn't yesterday, so lots changed.
Wasn't that long ago?
I didn't want to say how long ago, but lots changed since then, both on Franciscan's campus and in the town. So what have you really noticed that's different this time around?
Well, I mean, it's just interesting. The first time I was ever in Steubenville was when I came as a student. I'm from Colorado, so I never visited, and I remember driving across the old bridge. It's not even there anymore.
Right.
And coming up to Steubenville, this is profoundly different than the small town in the mountains of Colorado. And just kind of looking around and then coming again 33 years later. And just the difference in that drive up there with the Franciscan Square and the welcoming of the whole coming into the city. It's profoundly different. I mean, everything about the entrance is just so much nicer. It's more developed. It's terribly different.
You mentioned Franciscan Square, and that's something that's very recent and has been a big economic driver, not only for the university, but for the city of Steubenville as well. What do you think about expanding that? Are there plans in the works to make that an even bigger deal?
Yeah, well, first off, I think that, again, the Franciscan Square happened while I was away, and I remember the first time I came back and I saw it. I thought, this is fantastic. And I really didn't know a lot of the history about it, but I think it's a great example of what works well when the university and the town come together with a sense of vision and development and creating something that's much more attractive, more inviting for visitors. So I think that the project itself was fantastic. We're actually right now just taking a look at what might be some possibilities for the future. We don't have any concrete plans where we're going to do this, that, or the other. This is, I think, another area that we can work with the local community and say what best serves the university, what best serves the community, how can we come together to make what is, I think, a great space even better.
How has your relationship been with the local community since you've taken over?
Yeah, well, one of the first things we did actually was down in the Franciscan Square. We had a gathering of just allowing myself to meet some of the local community, and the welcome that I've received has been fantastic. I mean, people are just very kind, and they've been very generous with their time and their offering. The number of people who said to me, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Now, I would expect that from some of the people, because literally some of the people I've known for over 30 years. But it was the new friendships that I've developed and new people that I'd never met before that have a direct interest in. It seems to me that when the town does well, it's going to be good for the university. When the university does well, it's going to be good for the town. And to be able to have men and women who want to engage the university and work with me, I mean, it's been great. The generosity, the excitement has been wonderful.
It's 2019, and it's no secret that our society is more secular. And it's getting more secular all the time. When we talk about census taking and we talk about groups and how people are going to identify religiously, the fastest growing group is none. And that presents, of course, many challenges for a religious university. Let's take a look. There's actually some numbers here. This is from a recent research done. We'll pop that up here. This is from the Pew Research Center. And we're going to take a look at what this has to say here. 16% of young millennials, this is folks who are right around 23 years old are identifying as Catholic right now. 8% of young millennial Catholics say they are, quote, very close to clergy. Now, these numbers have been dropping across the board. For Catholics, even more so when you compare them to Protestants. I have the numbers in front of me right now. Evangelicals, 28% say they're very close. Mainline, 19%. Historically black churches, 25%. So these numbers are all going down. So what sort of challenges does that present then in 2019 to recruit people to Franciscan University?
Well, I mean, those numbers are startling. And the interesting thing, I don't know when you're doing your research what you found, but the largest percentage of people, when they're, let's say, young people that have faith, when they're 18, the reality is by the time they're 25, roughly 70% of those people that were at one time going to church are not going to church anymore. So on one level, yes, it's a difficulty, it's an obstacle. The other, it's also an opportunity. I think it's one of the things that's unique about Franciscan University is that while we recognize the culture is becoming secular, we want to try to maintain a faith in the midst of that. So what's actually happening is we are separating ourselves more, and people are saying, you know, if I want to go to a university where I'm able to get an outstanding education, but also maintain my faith and grow in my faith and develop my relationship with the Lord, Franciscan University is becoming more attractive to that population exactly for those numbers. But one of the things that's exciting about it as well is that we are graduating where, unfortunately and tragically, I wish it was the case not in Catholic schools, but the reality is students are graduating from high school and going to Catholic schools, and oftentimes, unfortunately, stopping going to church. Well, we see that when we're graduating an alumni base that still has faith, that wants to engage the culture, that wants to be good lawyers and doctors and architects and engineers and all these various things that they'll go into after graduation, and do it with faith. And that's really, we see ourselves as, yes, there's some obstacles, yes, there's some difficulties, but for us and the way we look at it, it's actually going to be a greater opportunity for us. Because it's more clear. People know if we're going to come to Franciscan University, that there's going to be a faith environment that's dynamic. It's going to be in an area where that's comfortable and it's safe and the environment's good. I think our numbers show more and more people want to be a part of what we're doing.
You talk about engaging the community, whether they're believers or non-believers. Of course, at the heart of Christianity is the Great Commission, which is to spread. So in what ways do you think that Franciscan effectively does that? And maybe how can the university get better?
That's a great question. Well, one of the things that, since I've been back, that I've just been really pleased with is the engagement of the works of mercy. There's various programs on campus where they go and they help in the food kitchens in the area, they help in the shelters, Vagabond Ministries downtown working with the kids. So a lot of our kids are working with them. But it's not just this area. They go across in the valley and being able to do all different kinds of ministries and opportunities. That's just locally. Every spring break, every Christmas break, we have kids literally going Central America, Haiti, Honduras, Ecuador, I mean just all over and doing ministry. And not only in there, but they also go to the Indian Reservation in New Mexico, a homeless place in Chicago. So I think we're graduating a population of alumni who have a real sensitivity to the difficulties that we find in our culture today, and spiritually but also physically, in the poor, and they have a real commitment to be able to work with them. And this town has done a great job and finding places for our kids to do ministry and to help out at.
Yes, that's something, and that's what I was going to ask you about, was here locally, because we do see, and we do stories on this all the time, where a group of Franciscan students are doing this, group of Franciscan students are doing that. How important is it to engage on a very hyper-local level?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I was just talking with a person who's getting a social work degree, and she was talking about what it is to be able to work with her clients, but then also engage them on a personal level. They may be at the mall and they run into each other. So it's not just we're coming in here and we're doing whatever we're going to do, but we're developing relationships with local people and being able to give them this sense of an encounter, an opportunity that becomes very personal. And again, the city has done a wonderful job at allowing our students to have opportunities for that.
Talking about personal relationships, and when your students are out, they're also spreading the word of God. That's part of their mission. So what kind of challenges have you seen, maybe that those students have brought back to you, to do that and still service what people's most fundamental needs are when we're talking about maybe clothing, shelter, food, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Mother Teresa, who I believe there's a nutcracker of Mother Teresa down in the village, but she was always about you preach the gospel and you share the message, the love of God, the saving message that Jesus offers. But you also have to meet their needs. And those two things have to be done together. And our students, many of them are studying theology. They all have to study some theology. Many of them are getting majors in that, which is wonderful. But if it's not affecting their day-to-day living, if it's not, first off, affecting the way they treat one another on campus, the way that we treat them, but then also how they engage the community. The way you put it at the beginning was perfect, Rich, is that the Great Commission is for them to be able to share what they're experiencing. We don't want to just create some little village on top of the hill that is a university, but that university has got to engage the world, engage a culture. And hopefully we're forming them to be able to do that.
We're going to take a quick break. Father Dave, we will be back in 2 minutes. This is One-on-One with Rich Pierce.
Your skills in the classroom have transformed young lives. Now become a leader among your peers and take your teaching career to new heights with a master's in education or educational administration from Franciscan University of Steubenville. Franciscan's program is tailored to your needs. Take classes online, full-time or part-time. Find out more about Franciscan University's career-changing master's in education or educational administration at franciscan.edu/MSED.
Whether you have your dream house picked out or you're just beginning your search, First Choice America is here to help you with your mortgage needs. With flexible terms and with rates as low as 3.01 APR, your first step to home ownership begins at First Choice America.
It's Chevy Silverado time at Auto Choice, the Valley's favorite truck at the Valley's favorite dealer. Auto Choice has new 2020 Chevy Silverados with rebates and discounts up to $10,500 off MSRP. Huge selection, fantastic prices. Auto Choice, Route 7, Bel Air.
I'm Kate Davison, and there are many extraordinary people who call the Ohio Valley home. We want to know who's making a difference in your community. To nominate a Shining Star, please visit the Shining Stars tab at W2B9.com today and watch Wednesdays at 5 and 10 on News 9.
Dream vacations, tuition, debt, home improvements, and so much more. First Choice America can help with our great rates on our home equity loan. You already have the house. Now is the time to use the equity. Call today to set up an appointment.
As a nurse, you take pride in the high-quality care you provide your patients. Now it's time to take care of your future. Become a family nurse practitioner with a Master of Science in Nursing at Franciscan University of Steubenville. Franciscan's program is tailored to your needs. Attend full or part-time, take evening classes, develop a schedule that fits your life and career. Visit franciscan.edu/MSN for more about the career-changing MSN from Franciscan University of Steubenville.
This is One-on-One with Rich Pierce, a deeper dive into the issues that affect you. Sponsored by Trinity Health System.
Welcome back to One-on-One with Rich Pierce. Again, I'm joined by Father Dave Pavanka. Father Dave, again, thank you so much for being here. Now, we want to talk about a difficult subject right now, and that's, of course, the sex abuse scandal going on in the church. It's been going on for a long time now, unfortunately, perhaps longer than any of us know.
Sure.
So what's a way that the Catholic Church can help rebuild some trust that's been lost?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, obviously some of those numbers that you provided earlier, I think that's a part of that. Tragically, we have a population of young people who have been raised in a church, in a culture, in a world, because it's obviously it's not just a church, it's just so cultural right now, but related to the church where they've never known scandal. I mean, they've always known scandal, that it's always been, every couple of months there's a new news piece. And that's been one of the things that's been so heartbreaking. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine what is a priest, but as a priest, what that is personally for me, and knowing young people that have had horrible things happen to them, and having worked with students over the years that have had things happen to them, it breaks my heart as a priest, and one of the things that I think we need to do is we need to first off recognize those young people who were hurt, but even those who maybe didn't have anything personally, it's had an impact on them, My suspicion is that there's very few people that haven't had some association with somebody, a cousin, a relative, or something that had some kind of abuse, let's say a wider abuse. But to be able to recognize that it's had an impact on everybody. How can we best minister to the people, first off, that were abused, and make sure that they're cared for, that they're loved, and and that we do the best we can to serve and to minister to them and meet their needs. We also need to make sure things like that don't happen again. I mean, the difference in what I have to do now as compared to what I have to do, say, 20 years ago is just terribly different. And so many things have changed in policies and procedures and safety environments and all of those things, which are absolutely necessary. So I think what the church needs to do is make sure that we follow through with the things that we said we were going to do in maintaining those environments and that safety. But then also continue to try to be an example. You know, I always try to be an example of a priest that young people can look to, that can trust, that can believe, because what gets lost in this is the saving message of God and the saving message that Jesus came to bring. And unfortunately, because of some people's hurt or the difficulties that they had, that all gets really confused. So we need to try to be the models of faith that we're supposed to be, and then help minister to those who have been hurt, and then bring forth true hope and healing and joy and freedom, all what's supposed to come with our faith.
Now, how do you reach out to somebody who has had their faith really destroyed by seeing all these scandals? Because the distrust of the church then becomes a distrust of the religion, period, and unbelief. So how do you reach back out to those people?
Absolutely, I get that, and that's really fair. One of the things that I reflect on is Bishop Barron, he's a bishop from Los Angeles. He wrote a document, and one of the things that he talked about is, first off, is to help them realize that obviously what happened never should have happened, and that the church to that end needs to repent and ask for forgiveness when necessary. But then also to help them to be able to see that, unfortunately, but it's the reality, the church has been a broken vessel. You read Corinthians and you find some of the things that were going on in the early church 30 years after, which is this invitation to help to keep their eyes on what is true, you know, those things that are true and beautiful and good. I help them establish a relationship with Christ, because sometimes, unfortunately, that gets lost. I mean, I stand as a person of faith. When that begins to get violated, those most fundamental things that we believe about God get violated and get distorted. So to try to restore those very basic things: who is God? Who are we in relationship with Him? What does God desire for them? And again, that's my role. And the role of the priest today is to try to restore a faith and a trust that's been profoundly damaged. And that's not an easy task. And
there's the personal side that we were just talking about. There's also the systemic side. And that's kind of the apparatus that many people believe have really failed here to protect those most vulnerable, right, and then to adequately punish those who have committed the acts. Is enough being done to protect the children and whomever else may be abused, and then to adequately punish the priests or clergy who were involved?
Yeah, is enough being done? I would always be cautious to say is enough being done, because we need to do everything we can. So I don't know quite how to balance those. I take a look at the things that have changed, like in my particular religious community, but also on the university. Policies and procedures and reporting and relationships with the civil authorities and the police and all of those steps that have honestly weren't in place 20 years ago. So I take a look at the various things that are being done that were not even present. Is enough being done? We always need to make sure we're refining, to make sure that we're doing all that we can to be able to create an environment that is safe, that is helps the faith develop and helps it grow. But we need to continue to be vigilant in making sure that we do the best we can possibly about that.
We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back with more with Father Dave after this.
Today we are excited to announce that by the end of October, less than 4 weeks from today, Trinity will be reopening both of these two buildings, formerly known as the East Ohio Regional Hospital Outpatient Health Center. We will be rebranding it as the Trinity Health System St. Clairsville Medical Plaza. We have recruited an out...
This is One-on-One with Rich Pierce, a deeper dive into the issues that affect you. Sponsored by Trinity Health System.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us for this edition of One-on-One with Rich Pierce, I'm joined by Father Dave Pivonka, President of Franciscan University, and we've been touching on a lot of different subjects here. But let's talk about the cost of higher education. You're the president of a university. College has never been more expensive than it is now.
Right.
So how do you keep attracting students?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Well, first off, I think that while education is expensive, I think statistically it's still a good deal, you know, in being able to. We had this cool thing that happened Saturday night. We had our Founders Day, and it was awards that were given to local students, all students who were local, and part of the community grant that's been going on in the university, I think for maybe 18 or 19 years, something like $18 million worth of aid has been given to the local community. Well, there was a woman who gave her sharing. It took her quite a while to go to college to get her degree from the university. But at the end of it, she shared that being able to have, even though it cost her money, she had to take out some loans and that, she said her education has broken generational poverty in her family. And that's exactly what this is about. Yes, education is expensive, but everything's expensive. Healthcare, so all prices are going up. But we do the best that we can to make sure that the education is an outstanding education, what they're receiving is beneficial, but then also we've got financial aid and being able to help the local people.
Another issue, and it's another tough one, that Franciscans dealing with, as many colleges and universities are dealing with around the country, is sexual assaults on campus, student to student. Sure. And that's something that we did several stories recently about it on Franciscan's campus. And how are things in terms of reporting there, and what has changed in the time after that has come out? Right.
Well, I can't necessarily speak because I've only been here for the last 6 months. But since I've been here, one of the things that we've established is an advocate office, where if something happens to an individual, that they can go to our office, and it's a woman who's from the local community, and a student can go and get the help and the support that she needs. We've grown in our relationship with the local police department. If a crime is committed, the perpetrator of that crime is going to get in trouble. So we want to make sure that all laws are followed and that the victims are cared for, that justice is brought about. And that's, I think, this advocacy office that we have at the university. It's only been there for the last several months. I think that's one of the great steps that we've made to be able to do that, is make sure that the kids are cared for.
And how important is that relationship with local police?
It's really important. One of the first stops I made was down in the city hall and being able to spend some time with those individuals. Some of the police that are presently were college classmates of mine. So I know that the service that they do to the community, but then also it's about when something is done that's illegal, that's a crime, the people who perpetrate those crimes should be taken care of and should be arrested. And we're committed at the university to make sure that happens. If a crime is committed against our kids. Somebody asked me one time, with all that's going on in Catholic higher education, what keeps me awake at night? And they were talking about buildings and costs. And I said, that's not what keeps me awake at night. What keeps me awake at night is make sure my kids are safe. You know, that they're in a safe place, that they can grow, that they can develop, they can grow in their relationship with Christ, they can be educated. And in anything that's going to compromise that, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Many of the issues we've talked about, a lot of it boils down to transparency in many ways. And that it helps with trust, it helps with reporting, of course, on campus. So What do you think that Franciscan can do to be more transparent, and maybe not just Franciscan, but Catholic universities in general?
Well, that's what part of this office is it allows the transparency, so the reports that are made, that those reports are public, so that those are able to be seen more. But I think that is one of the things that's important for us, is that we have, let's say, take a look from the church, that it's outside people, outside of the structure of the church, are responsible in helping us, so that it's not such an insular population that's making all the decisions or that's dealing with all the struggles, that there's outside sources coming in. That was important for the university, it's important for the church, I think it's important for any organization, honestly.
One final break. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Your skills in the classroom have transformed young lives. Now become a leader among your peers and take your teaching career to new heights with a master's in education or educational administration from Franciscan University of Steubenville. Franciscan's program is tailored to your needs. Take classes online, full-time or part-time. Find out more about Franciscan University's career-changing master's in education or educational administration at franciscan.edu/MSED.
Score big this season when you finance your vehicle with First Choice America Community Federal Credit Union. Rates as low as 2.79% APR and $100 cash in your pocket. Get on the winning team with First Choice America Community Federal Credit Union. Don't sit on the sidelines this season. Get in the game and refinance your vehicle with First Choice America Community Federal Credit Union. Rates as low as 2.79% APR and $100 cash in your pocket. Get on the winning team with First Choice America Community Federal Credit Union.
As a nurse, you take pride in the high-quality care you provide your patients. Now it's time to take care of your future. Become a family nurse practitioner with a Master of Science in Nursing at Franciscan University of Steubenville. Franciscan's program is tailored to your needs. Attend full or part-time, take evening classes, develop a schedule that fits your life and career. Visit franciscan.edu/MSN for more about the career-changing MSN from Franciscan University of Steubenville.
This is One-on-One with Rich Pierce, a deeper dive into the issues that affect you. Sponsored by Trinity Health System.
Welcome back. Father Dave Pavanka with me here. We just have another minute and a half just about to talk. So what's the thing that you're looking forward to most in the coming year? 2020 is here. What are you looking forward to most?
Well, that's a huge question. What am I looking forward to most? I'm looking forward to work with our young people, with the students, and being back working with them. We've got the most outstanding group of students, and I just enjoy them and enjoy being with them. I enjoyed that you said at the very beginning of the show, and you're absolutely right, that this is home. And I've been away for 11 years, and there's people I haven't even been able to spend much time with. So I'm looking forward to being with the local community again, going down to Naples or going to the Bob Evans or something like that, right, just to be able to spend time with people. Spend some time in the Franciscan Square, have a beer at Bennigan's with somebody, right? Just these relationships that I've developed over the last many years and the new relationships that I want to be able to develop being with the local community. Again, this has been my home for 33 years in one way or another, and it's just great to be back here.
Father Dave, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Glad we were able to make it work, and I know you've only been in office for a few months now, and of course, good luck in the coming years.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching, as always. And that'll do it for this edition of One-on-One with Rich Pierce. Another big thank you to Father Dave. If there's someone you'd like to see me go one-on-one with, let me know. You can email me at rpierce@WTOB.com or tweet me anytime, day or night, at RichWTOB9. Have a great day.